gentlemen, Your Excellencies, it's a pleasure to introduce the first panel, which is entitled Public Utilities 2.0, More with Less. This panel will be moderated by Mr. Jose Diaz-Caneja, CEO of Acciona Water, who is also a board member of IDA, and Mr. Rashid Gamroy, who's Vice President of B6 Middle East and also the Vice President of the IDA. Mr. Jose Diaz-Caneja, CEO of Acciona Water, is the first moderator of the panel. He has a wealth of experience in large-scale water treatment infrastructure in the Middle East and Africa, and we are extremely pleased he will lend his expertise here today. Mr. Rashid Gamroy, Vice President of B6, Vice President of IDA, is our second moderator, and he joined B6 directly after completing his education master's degree in mechanical, electrical, and civil engineering in 1989, and has over 30 years experience in construction and building of facilities and in the Middle East region.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, Excellency Altair. Dear partners, IDA members, colleagues of these sectors, myself, jointly with Rashid Gamroy, are very pleased to introduce the discussion of this panel, which is Public Utilities, More with Less. Nowadays, in a period in which population and urban growth and its concentration in cities that are in many occasions close to the sea raise several issues that we need to address if we expect it, we will need to keep improving the life standards of humanity. This, jointly with the reduction in the level of available resources due to the need for spreading them among many different sectors, especially in the infrastructures, oblige us to do more with less. I would like to introduce the speakers of this panel. We're having 7 speakers, and we will start with Ms. Fatma Wale, which is Ministry of Water and Sanitation of Mombasa County in Kenya. So Mr. Nasser Luta, Executive Vice President of Power and Water of Dubai Electricity and Water Authority. His Excellency Mohammed Al-Mahrouki, Chairman of Oman Public Authority for Water, the AM. His Excellency Khalid Al-Qurashi, which is the CEO of the SWPC from Saudi Arabia. Mr. Abdullah Abdul Karim, who is Deputy Governor for the Saline Water Conversion Corporation. We have Peter Yu Hee, which is the CEO of the Public Utilities Board of Singapore. And we also have Julio Cesar Cosaca, which is the Vice Minister for Construction and Sanitation from Peru. So at this point, I would like also to give the word to my colleague Rashid, that would complement the introduction with a couple of words.
Thank you, Jose. In a few years, we will conclude the first quarter of the 20th century with limited solution to increasing water challenges with our panelists, some of the world's most experienced utility professionals who deal with universal water issue and lead mega water projects in their respective region. We would like to discuss what public utilities are doing to proactively address these challenges. They will share with us their vision on how they will secure sustainable supplies of safe water in the face of population growth, urbanization, decreased government spending, industrialization, and climate change. Also, their insight on how they plan for new technology, energy efficiency, and integration of renewable energy. Their best practice to create a roadmap and inspire those who will soon have to address these emerging challenges. We will, of course, emphasize on the topic how to deliver more water with less, considering the following challenges of water scarcity, climate change, sustainability, water nexus, power, energy efficiency, and more.
Okay. So we'd like to introduce the discussion of this panel, and having in mind the limited time that we have for it and the number of relevant speakers that we have, we'd like just to directly start with a question that would be related to the future strategy of the region, represented by all the panel, and considering urbanization, climate change, and the population growth with the constraints that this brings to the issues we have already raised in the introduction.
Well, I'm very pleased to be here today. Of course, the this is very important topic for all of us, and we've been talking about the challenges for a long time. And I think these challenges will continue as long that we provide this vital services to the public. Of course, in our region, we highly dependent on seawater desalination for supplying water to the public. And of course, that will have the global, environmental issues will have the impact on making this the supply of water sustainable in the future. But working together in terms of on the technology side, I think will overcome some of these challenges, and we will improve the conditions that will make the supply of the water more sustainable in the future. In terms of Oman, the strategy is very clear that we rely on the seawater for potable use, and we reserve the groundwater for other uses like the agriculture or as a natural storage to be used for emergency. And we achieved quite good results so far by achieving 85% of our total demand coming from the desalinated water, and 15% using the groundwater. And we are aiming to increase the share of the desalinated water to 95% in the coming years. And we only use the groundwater when it's not possible to deliver water, the seawater areas. I mean, recently we completed a project in which we are supplying Jabal Akhdar, which is 3,000 meters above the sea level, with the desalinated water. This is a quite achievement that you supply that water to an area which is not much population in this area, but that's helped a lot on the development of that area, especially in the tourism industry. So we created a value, economic value, for the area, because the water now is available. So more hotels to be built. Also the water which was used to be supplied for the human needs now available for agriculture. So the agriculture also is growing in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Luta. What's your view about the future strategy? In a few words, we heard His Excellency. I don't know if we can add more, but please go ahead.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think His Excellency, MD and CEO of DIWA, gave the integrated strategy and overall how DIWA is looking at the future, and was really showing the sustainability part as an integrated part of more for less, what we are going to discuss here. So I will just summarize again what His Excellency covered. one of the things that we looked at, and the key, is we look at efficiency improvement in energy sector from the supply side, transmission distribution, and also going to the customer end through the demand side management program. And His Excellency also mentioned about the unaccounted for water, how it used to be about 42% and dropping to 6.5%. And this is a great work that was done, and we are proud of it. And there is opportunity for improvement that we are working on. From the supply side, we started year 2006 setting the strategy to ensure sustainability and emission reduction, as well as improving our bottom line. So the strategy that was put is a win-win strategy, is to go for improvement of our production. And as you know, we are using MSF. And so the design, we didn't just start by putting new programs, but we were fully involved in optimum power plant cogeneration, power and water design, and to have the minimum cost, meeting the demand. And one of the key things that drives this efficiency strategy is ensuring availability and reliability of our fleet, technical innovation, and also business model innovation and stakeholder engagement. And the result of this, around 31% improvement in efficiency. Then the leadership in DIWA went through an exercise looking at the future. We had our future foresight, and we looked at everything, what's going to happen in the future. We have the Mohammed Barashar Solar Park, penetration of 5,000 megawatt renewable, and we have the other diversification program. So what we saw, looking at the demand, that MSF is really not the right choice for us to go forward to optimize and also to ensure sustainability. And His Excellency mentioned in his presentation that we went for decoupling. And this came from future shaping exercise that we have done. And the decoupling is going to really the seawater RO. And we started developing this seawater RO. Right now we have the K-Station 40 MIGD. Now, we cannot do all of this without engaging our stakeholders. So if you really want more for less, you need also the supplier, EPC contractor, the developers. We have to work with them to ensure, and this is also what we discussed yesterday in Saudi Arabia, how they are setting the auxiliary consumption.
Yes, Mr. Ruta, I would like to add one more thing on your behalf, if you don't mind. Happy to hear that you are decoupling, and also glad to know, because I am part of Dubai, that you are also going to do some hydropower. Yes. Means having your electricity from the natural resources. And
this is what His Excellency said, that by 2030, let's just go back. Our system, our production, the cogeneration, when we tackle efficiency, we tackle sustainability in DIWA or safety, we tackle it at the design stage. It's not after operation. We ensure that our system is robust. The design of our system is cogeneration. And there are many operational techniques and optimization in the design that was introduced. 70% of our water production is from waste heat, so fuel-free, zero CO2. So we did this, but the future demands certain changes, and change management has to be applied. His Excellency mentioned that by 2030, we will meet the demand. Our demand will be very close to 600 million gallons per day. 300 million will be coming from seawater RO, and the other 300 million will be coming from MSF. From the MSF, all the energy requirement will come from Mohammed bin Rashid Solar Park, okay? And for also the seawater RO. It's around probably 60 to 65% is the energy required for that. Point is, and you know, I really appreciate, I work in DIWA, but I appreciate DIWA. DIWA always looking for the future. Their strategy is really, when we saw about the COP21, what they set for the clean water, and fitted exactly with our strategy. What they requested from Dubai to achieve in 2030, we are going to achieve it in 2020.
I'm sure, Mr. Ruta. I have no doubt. Your Excellency, Mr. Kosaka, yesterday you gave us some glimpse about pure water. Can you please summarize in a few words also your strategy to provide more water with less energy, less cost, and so and so?
I'm speaking in Spanish. La estrategia que estamos haciendo desde el Perú básicamente radica en que tenemos casi 10% de peruanos que no tienen acceso al agua potable. Para eso estamos desarrollando estrategias directamente relacionadas con la actividad que tiene que hacer el Estado. Una vez que el Estado esté haciendo estas actividades mediante las transferencias a los gobiernos locales y también las obras y transferencias que hace el Estado directamente, las complementamos con el sector privado mediante las PPPs.
I will make a quick translation on that. Vice Minister Kosak said that they are promoting the PPP schemes based on the privately financed projects in order to support and develop the water resources and infrastructure required for supplying water. In that regard, and I will move on to Spanish, I would like to ask him about what's the main challenge that he's facing in such a populated country as Peru, no, with 90 million persons. ¿Cuál es el mayor reto que tiene vicepresidente en esta situación con un país con tanta población?
Claro, el reto más grande es tener la brecha cerrada, tener el acceso al 100% del agua y el tratamiento de aguas residuales de todo el Perú. Es aproximadamente un esfuerzo que tiene que hacer el Estado peruano de aproximadamente 17.000 millones de dólares en infraestructura que nos falta, y por ende, ante un Estado que promueve este tipo de cierre de brechas, pero con los recursos escasos que tiene que recurrir de todas maneras a la inversión privada, ¿no? Okay. Esta unión entre el esfuerzo del gobierno y la inversión privada va a hacer que podamos lograr en esta estrategia del cierre de brechas que queremos.
Okay. So Vice Minister said that the main objective would be just bridging the gap for everybody in population having clear access to water supply, and for that there will be a need for $17 million invested in infrastructure over the following years, and definitely that's, I guess, the main reason for involving the private sector in this huge plan for water infrastructure development. Okay, so just moving to the next speaker, I think that Mr. Yuhi, I would like to just also ask you about the same topics, but based on the experience of Singapore, which is a very particular country in this regard, and that in which water supply is absolutely crucial. You have been doing it in different or from different sources. One is from your neighboring countries, but also you put in a strong effort on the new water and desalination. And how do you see that in the future, and how you could be doing more with less in such a complex environment?
Well, thank you. Yesterday at my presentation, I mentioned that the future of water in Singapore is really portable reuse and desalination. These two sources are great because they are climate resistant. You don't have to depend on the weather. But they are also energy intensive because really they are manufactured water. You are making water. And it requires a lot of energy. And that is a challenge for us because we have no energy. Mm-hmm. Every electron in Singapore has to be generated at high cost from imported energy. So our challenge now, as a water utility, is how to reduce the energy take for manufactured sources, for desalination, for reuse. We all know seawater RO is 3.5 kilowatts per kilowatt hour per meter cube. That is the standard now. In PUB, we believe that it is possible to at least half this energy take. So maybe move to 1.6, maybe even 1.5 kilowatt hour per cubic meter. Not in the very long future. I think in the next 10 years, I think we should be able to achieve this. So that's our target, to halve the energy take for desalination. So quite unusual for a water utility. We are investing a lot of resources in basic R&D in order for us to achieve this. And it's been promising. The results that we are seeing in the labs and in our pilot plants is promising. I think we're down to two key technologies now. The first is deionization. Right? We have a pilot plant running on this technology, and it's doing about 2 kilowatt hour per cubic meter. So that's promising. But what we think, and we think this is the holy grail, it is biomimicry. That will be the technology that will save our lives. If you think about it, fish in the ocean requires fresh water too to live. The mangrove plant that lives at the ocean's edge, right? It has to deal with salt water and also brackish water. It also requires fresh water. So fish, the mangrove, they are able to remove salt from seawater for very little energy. Mm-hmm. We have to mimic these nature. If we are able to find a way to do what the fish is doing, what the mangroves are doing, I think we may have found the answer to at least half the energy for desalination. So this is the focus of our research now in Singapore. I believe in 10 years we should be able to see this technology mature and maybe scale up to industrial scale. Okay. So this is one part of our strategy to deal with the energy challenge that is facing us.
And if you would need to bet, having in mind the diesel plants of Tuasing Spring, Marina East, or the new water plants that you also have spread around the island, for the next 10 years, do you think that there will be more focus on diesel or in reuse?
We will for sure try to maximize reuse. Because we know diesel is 3.5 kilowatt hour per cubic meter, but potable reuse, turning sewage into drinking water again, only requires 1 kilowatt hour per cubic meter. This is 3.5 times less. So it is a no-brainer for you to want to maximize reuse rather than diesel.
Thank you very much. Ms. Awale, I think that we are anxious to know what's your view on the situation of Mombasa County and how would you address or thinking to ensure the water availability for the future in a county and country with such a demand or increasing demand in different sectors?
Thank you. I'm actually overwhelmed, and I'm wondering how I'm sitting in this panel because the African experience, and especially in Kenya, is totally different to what the gentlemen are talking about here. We've just commenced on our baby steps. Scarcity of water in Africa and mostly Kenya is very high. The government has started to put measures in place in terms of expansion and ensuring that water is reachable to everyone. The panel, the gentlemen are talking about sustainability, the energy cost, and trying to see what innovations and technology we can have in the future. But if I just give an example or an experience of Mombasa in terms of what the situation is, we are a population of around 1.2 million. Population is growing. It's a seaport. It's a tourist destination. And, but our water demand is over 250, between 220,000 cubic meter per day to 250,000 cubic meter a day. What we are actually receiving in Mombasa is between 48,000 to 50,000 cubic meter a day. And in Kenya, it's a mixture of water sources. We have rivers. The government is embarking on ensuring that we have dams. There's one that's going to be built in Coast Province in Kwale, and that is what we rely on. Now, given the situation of Mombasa, we do not have our own source of water. We rely on the neighboring counties for the water. And you can imagine the resource is scarce. All these neighboring counties want to ensure that their counties first have water before Mombasa can have any water. And that is why we decided, since we are at the port, it's a tourist destination, we have beaches, we opted for the desalination for us to be self-sufficient in Mombasa County. Gentleman from Singapore is talking about water reuse, and I think that is what we would aspire to be. But in Africa, like any other place, there would need to have a lot of sensitization. I think from scarce water to water reuse, most people would say, how can you use that water? But I think this is where we are heading to. Water is becoming scarce, the resource is becoming scarce. But in terms of the vision of the country at large, we were operating on a Water Act that was there in 2002. I'm happy to report that we have a new Water Act, and this Water Act is mostly encouraging utility companies to be more financial viable, to have good governance in them so that they can attract investments. Because in Africa, most utility companies have been run by governments. But again, in Kenya, since we've gone the federal way in county governments, water has completely been taken to be the responsibility of county governments. So at least county governments are now able to build their portfolio in terms of ensuring these utility companies work at their best. These utility companies get the full support. These utility companies follow good governance measures so that they can at least try and stand on their own in terms of development. Then the other issue, I think most of the distinguished guests, panelists here have mostly covered, and possibly they have found measures, is we are also crumpled with a lot of non-revenue water in Kenya. And mostly it's because most of these pipelines are totally depleted. So as much as we are saying we are trying to get water to our residents, but we are also fighting to see how we can reduce the non-revenue water. Giving Mombasa an example, our non-revenue water is almost 55%, so that is quite high. And I'm glad that I'm sitting in this panel because we can, I think, benchmark and learn from each other so that counties like Mombasa or countries like Kenya do not need to reinvent the wheel. We can take the good practices and see that that can be carbon pasted in what Kenya should do and where we should head in years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Engineer Abdul Karim, Saudi is one of the largest desalinated water producer. With a focus on our panel subject, more with less, what is the Saudi strategy today with this large number of projects going on?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good morning, everyone. I'll be pleased to share what's happened in Saudi Arabia, and I believe that most of the attendees know that Saudi market, especially in the water, is booming. As you know, we announced our national water strategy 18 months ago, and all the water sector have been restructured, and yet things to become. All of us knowing that we have a very good experience with the private sector, and it's a robust story where we introduced the private sector to the water industry since more than 10 years ago. Today, as Saudi Arabia, it's the biggest country consuming the desal water industry, and in Saudi Arabia we have so many players in the water desalination. On behalf of myself, I'm representing SWIC, and for those who do know that SWIC is producing 5.5 million cubic meter a day from the desalination, and as well within SWIC we have the transmission, water transmission among the whole country. So one of those main steps that have been done, we split the transmission from the water production, and all of us know. I'm keeping till all of us because Saudi market, it's attractive for all the investors, all the audience care about water industry, the desal industry. Today, and since years ago, we focus on research, and we are keen to enhance this sector by having a new technology. We are trying our best to reduce the consumption of power by generating water, and we achieved 3 kilowatt hour per cubic meter. Yet we have a room to reduce this number by increase the efficiency, for example, for the high pressure pump, or increase the efficiency of the power recovery, or at least have a less consumption from the membrane. All of these topics have been approached by our research center, and we have an international cooperation vision. So we are trying to help the sector worldwide. Today, we are trying to open the door more widely for the private sector to play the main role in the water sector, but we have the principle have been agreed for this direction. We are working under those 5 principles. We are customer focused. We need to introduce the private sector, so we have to bring the investor attractiveness approach. However, we have to keep the fiscal attractiveness for our national benefit, so it's a balance. We are trying to develop the sector, and we are keen to keep the reliability of our water production. As you know, we are serving most of the area in Saudi Arabia. However, we have the Holy Mosque, and having a sustainable and reliable water supply, it's our mission. So we have to move with a very straightforward approach and with a very strategic movement, having in our mind that we have a mission. It's not a daily work. We have a mission to bring water to the people, to reduce the water cost, and to introduce a new technology for the worldwide, since we know in Islam that water is one of our responsibility and we have to care about a human. So this is our mission in few. And if we have a different angle about the renewable power, we are keen to utilize renewable power, and all of us know that in Neom City and other industrial area, they announce a very huge and project. However, in the desalination, we believe that, especially for the solar power, it's useful for the small plant, not for the very large plant, since the storing the power, it's difficult. If we're gonna maneuvering this obstacle, we will have a wheel agreement with the grid, electricity grid. So we are approaching different area, how we can keep our environment clean. This is one of the newest thing that we start doing it, zero liquid discharge technology. There is so many articles talking about this technology, but we are keen to enhance this technology, and we invest to let this technology mature enough, and then we can introduce it to other countries. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdul Karim. I think that we were tempted to dive deeper on these questions, but we have consumed more or less half of the time of the panel, so well, we are forced to move to the second question. So it's related to tariff application, and it's linked to the real cost of water. And in this sense, Mr. Mahrouki, being Oman pioneer in BOT or BO schemes for water supply, but that's one part of the system, no? of the water supply chain. How do you see transferring this water cost that, based on the schemes, on the BOT schemes that you have implemented in the country, could be easily assessed? So transferring them to the end user, that is people opening the tap and having water at home. How do you see that?
Well, you know, my background is in economics. So as an economist, you know, that will be something nice to do. But of course, you have to consider the social side. You know, the cost in the Gulf region is around 10 times more than, you know, Europe. So paying the actual cost, it has a lot of benefits to sustainability. But you, as I said, you have to consider and manage the safety net within the society and make sure that you know the changes on the tariff, you know, it's part of a global policy, you know, to observe the impact of increasing the tariff. That's one side. But as utilities, also, I think and we have to also satisfy ourselves whether we are really hitting the efficiency levels that you know will justify the tariff increase. So working on the efficiency part and reducing the cost, it is essential before you move to the step in which you increase the tariff dramatically to the end users, especially the residential users. I mean, 80% of our customers now are residential. So, you know, that will have a big impact on the social side. As you said also in the public-private participation has benefited the cost component in Oman. The first IWP was developed in Oman in 2006. And if you compare the cost from 2006 to 2018, in which we awarded the last IWPs, the reduction was around 100%. So on the production side, as you rightly said, when you involve the market to compete, and that's benefited the cost. But the big one is on the transmission and distribution. And you have to come up with more creative ways of involving the private sector on that segments. We have some examples. Recently, we outsource the automated meter reading, for instance. That we give it to the private sector on a managed services concept. And we started to see the benefits. We reduced the capital investments, and we increased the reliability on the meter reading and customer satisfaction, and we also increased our revenue through that concept. The energy also optimization. There is a room also you involve the private sector to share the costs and the benefits for optimizing the energy use within the system. So I think as a summary, I think before moving to a cost-reflective, there is a lot of homework that we need to do internally within the utilities to justify any substantial increases on the tariff.
Thank you. Mr. Peter, yes, I would like to pass to you. I want to pass to the other part of the world, not staying in the Gulf for that particular part. In Singapore, how do you see the tariffication and, more importantly, the value of the water? Because I do consider if we want to do more and less, and this more is not properly used and not valued at its real value, how we will achieve that?
So in Singapore, we're quite clear from day one that you must not subsidize water. You must not subsidize water. So for PUB Singapore, we are the water utility in Singapore. We are part of government, but we have to make ends meet. I have to make a profit because I have to reinvest in the infrastructure and in customer service. So I have to make sure that my return on assets is greater than my weighted average cost of capital. If not, I start losing money. And now I'm returning around 5% on assets, and my cost of capital below 3%, so I'm okay. So you must not subsidize water. You must recover costs. And in Singapore, our principle is to tag the tariff at long-run marginal cost. So long-run marginal cost is what it costs us to produce the next drop of water. So that's sensible. Then, of course, you will raise the issue. What about the poor people? And there are still poor people in Singapore. How would they be able to afford life-giving water that is too expensive for them? My point is this. It is not the responsibility of the water utility to take care of the poor. Our responsibility as a water utility is to make water, is to give people universal access to water and to sanitation and to do it efficiently. It will be another part of government, the social service agencies in government, that will have to help the poor afford life-giving water. And they would know who needs help. So in Singapore, we do it through giving the poor vouchers. If you qualify as a poor person and you need assistance, you will get vouchers from the government, not from the utility, from the government, in order for you to be able to afford the tariffs, right? The problem with subsidies is rich and poor all enjoy the same subsidy. And let me tell you, the rich people don't need a subsidy on water. You have to target your subsidies if you want to subsidize water. So this is how we do it in Singapore.
Okay, Peter, I like the idea of decoupling the water authority from the government. Thank you for that. I think it's an important issue. Mr. Luta, in Dubai and considering Dubai configuration and so on, so what is your view on the tariffication and the real value of the water?
I mean, first, we talked yesterday, we talked about sustainability. I said the driver for everything is financial sustainability. I agree with the gentleman from, I agree with all of them, what they said. It has to be integrated part. We can't just talk about the tariff. I mean, first, I'm against subsidies, We cannot subsidize this. So in Dubai, first, we looked at the energy. You see, Dubai does not have gas. We don't produce gas. Our production or cogeneration, we use gas. We buy it from the market. We buy LNG. We buy this. We have to hedge. So there was what we introduced under the Dubai Supreme Council of Energy is the Dubai Integrated Gas Strategy 2030. And storing gas, using, hedging, long-term contract to secure, because first is because we need to pay, we have to pay, okay? Now, the tariff system also has to be fair. The tariff system, what we use in Dubai, is a slab system. You consume more, you pay more, okay? For the poor and who consume less, they pay less. But as you go and you consume more, you end up in this slab, that slab. The other thing is, when we're talking about cost, it's not the cost of production. People thinking that the cost is only an EPC and building something. No, it's your operation. If you're talking about IWP, yes, you have your 25 years and escalation and your tariff, what you pay. But if you are building this desalination plant, you have to operate it. You have to maintain it. Now, some of the things that we do to optimize, and something that was not mentioned here, I'm trying to mention it, but in the other thing, which is really the residual life assessment and lifetime extension. This is one of the key things also to reduce cost and applying. It's not just going to other things. So first also, this is costing us money. Transmission. I mean, look, DIWA in 1992 was 42% unaccounted for water. Not all of it line loss, but theft, no metering, all of this. So how we talk and try to take that cost, which is we are doing bad, and ask our customer to pay for it. So we need to minimize our losses. And the other thing that we are doing also is our smart grid, smart meters. We have now smart meters that communicate, and we send certain messages to our customers if there is higher consumption in water, because we don't wait for the cycle. We used to wait for 1 month for the cycle. If he has leak in his home after the meter, he will not know. So my point is we cannot just talk about tariff by itself. We have to combine it to, okay, what is the strategy? We have to do our best to reduce the cost, and then the tariff has to be reflective of the actual cost. Otherwise, it will not be sustainable.
Okay. Then, just Again, a bit worried about timing, but I would like just to keep on pushing on this topic, and just leaving one more topic to the end of the panel, which is related to your view on private equity investment in your sectors. But then, following in the same topic, please, Mr. Abdul Karim, how do you see that in Saudi being a large country with 30 million people, and huge lack of available fresh water and needs to be provided by diesel again. How do you see this issue of tariffing and policies of subsidies or solidarity?
In fact, I'll make it very short. Our mission to reflect the efficient cost on the water production, which is mean the end consumer should not pay for anything not reflecting the lowest price worldwide. If we have any problem in our supply chain, we have to solve it, not to move it to the end customer. So for the time being in Saudi Arabia, yes, there is a subsidy. This subsidy just to keep the end customer away, the consumer away from any supply chain not efficiency matter. However, we are working very hard to make it as much as what we aim to be efficient. And by the time, for sure, I'm totally agreed with what my colleague mentioned, that the water subsidy, it's not a matter. If we need to help our society by supporting those people who can't afford the water, we have to make it by a different way, not from the water production angle. And as per today, we are just about to reflect the right tariff on the water production for the end customer within the coming 5 years from now. And we are making this by gradual increment. However, we have different programs to serve those people who's not affording to pay the right tariff. In summary, it's not fair for the end consumer, if it's urban or potable water, to pay whatever it costs you. It's fair to pay whatever it should be the cost. So we are working to achieve the fair tariff, the fair cost for our consumers. And we will, inshallah.
Okay. We discussed about energy efficiency at the production. What do you think about energy efficiency at the tap? Because I think this is the most important part of sustainability if we can manage, because at the production, most probably we can have all our research and development, new technology, and so and so. But what about at the consumer, at the tap part?
This is
Your Excellency Fatma, what do you think about this?
Let me start by saying in Kenya, for example, the tariffs are fully controlled by the government. And unlike my colleagues in Kenya, water utilities are not supposed to make a profit. It's not a profit-making organization. And again, in Kenya, the utility companies are not subsidized by the government. When we compare that to the energy sector, this is where now the discrepancies happen. The energy sector is fully liberalized. The energy sector changes its tariffs anytime the dollar, the exchange market goes high or low. The energy sector within the government framework can do that. So when it comes to the tariff in comparison to the energy sector, we as utility companies cannot change your tariffs instantaneously. You have to go through a process whereby you have to collect data and ensure that customers are willing to pay at that cost. So you always end up being behind in terms of the cost of production because the energy costs keep changing. And in Kenya and in Mombasa, for example, most of our water is pumped. So already you can see there's a discrepancies that on one end, water utilities cannot sell at a higher rate. On another end, energy sector is not subsidizing the water sector. So the utility companies are always behind in terms of the cost of production. But we are now changing, as I indicated earlier, that frameworks and legislation is being put in place to ensure that the energy sector subsidizes the water sector when it comes to the energy cost. We are still waiting for that. My colleague in Singapore is shaking his head. But also within the tariffs, our tariffs are in categories. We do not have one standard tariff. There is a higher tariff for the industries and at the high end, and there's a lower tariff for the marginalized people. But we are also adopting the smart meters. I think this is how we then can comfortably indicate when it comes to the billing how much each household or the industry's usage in terms of the water.
Just for ending with the topic, Vice Minister Kosaka, how do you see this tariff versus real cost implementation in Peru? Do you think it could be transfer or achievable?
En Perú las tarifas generalmente están retrasadas, producto de que ha habido un mal registro de cada una de las empresas prestadoras de servicios en cada una de sus regiones y que hacen de que las tarifas no se incrementen a la necesidad que necesitan los proyectos de inversión. Eso quiere decir que ante cada proyecto de inversión nuevo que se hace, las solicitudes de tarifa no necesariamente son aceptadas por el regulador, que en este caso en el Perú se llama SUNAS, y que ellos son los que evalúan verdaderamente el incremento tarifario. Esos incrementos tarifarios se solicitan a esta organización cada 5 años, de tal forma de que se van actualizando las tarifas, pero es una tarea ardua porque hay muchas veces que los proyectos de inversión que se presentan para el incremento de tarifa, producto de los nuevos proyectos de inversión, no siempre se realizan o no siempre se terminan de realizar. Entonces hay un desfase entre lo que verdaderamente se está realizando como proyecto de inversión y el incremento tarifario.
Okay, Vice Minister, just for the sake of translation a little bit, try to do it in some way. Vice Minister said that there is some delay in the transfer in the real cost of the water to tariffs. There is a regulator that is just actualizing tariffs each 5 years, and it will also imply or including the cost of the new infrastructure that would be implemented in the different stages. So there is a real transfer, but with some delay from what is the real cost of water. Okay, so with this...
Let us go for some questions, please.
Yeah. Please, if you can stand up, please, or just say your name.
Excuse me, sorry.
Micro at your side.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ahmed Mawad. I'm from Egypt. I'm the VP of the holding company for water and wastewater. First of all, I would like to thank the panel because I'm feeling myself staying there and we're talking the same language. I mean, it seems that the problems are international and we have the same common challenges in all the utilities, which is good to hear, by the way. So I think I just focus on 2 points, basically the NRW and the energy related to tariff. My question is to the Honorable Minister of Mombasa, the 55% you mentioned. I think these are all NRW. And my question is that, do you have some plans, action plans, which are on ground now taking care to minimize this NRW percentage? And I like you say that we should all learn from our experiences. It's not our own problem, but we're ready to share because we're almost having the same problems in the same countries. The second question is to the Honorable It's, yeah, from the minister from Dubai. It's again about the NRW. How much is you mentioned the 42%, and then you managed to reduce it by applying smart networks and then following the efforts in Dubai for this. How much now have we reached for Dubai for the NRW? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we do have measures in place with our NRW. Because as I said earlier, most of these pipelines has been depleted and it's very old. And it's always been the case that the government had not been putting a lot of money into the water sector. But now we do have support from the World Bank who have done a very huge investment, especially in Mombasa County, in terms of trying to remove and replace the old pipeline to ensure that there's efficiency. And Mombasa being in a sea area, so there's been a lot of corrosive, and that's how we lose water. But we also are losing water not just because of depleted pipes, but there is also a lot of illegal connections that have been happening. And the county government has taken measures, and we are patrolling the lines in terms of ensuring that people are not tapping onto the main lines, but also ensuring that those who are caught, now we do have regulations in place on the penalties that if you're caught, that you've had illegal connections, you would pay a year bill, and you would pay for every drop of water that you've consumed, plus jail term with no, how should I say, you cannot have a bond. So those are the things that we've put in measure currently.
Thank you. Mr. Luta.
Thank you.
What was the question?
Can you repeat your question for Mr.
I'm
Luta?
saying that you just mentioned, sir, that you have 42% of, you started with the NRW for 42%, and now you did some measures regarding the smart networks. And I'm just wondering how this reflected in the reduction of the NRW. What's the NRW now in Dubai?
In the presentation, His Excellency showed, we used to be 42% unaccounted for water.
Yes.
And right now we are 6.5. Actually, the target is set for us to go to 5. Okay? Now, lots of effort. This is you see the time. This was 1992, 42, and we start, going down. One of the things that we did, or right now that we have a SCADA, water SCADA system. We have a team dedicated to detection of leakage. We are putting smart meters. The old piping network, okay, the fittings, we changed the design. Fittings, our pipes used to be the ACAC pipes. So we start all our pipes, I think from the late 90s, all GRE pipes. Protection. So all of this and monitoring and a strategy, clear strategy mandated every year, and we are putting action plan, and people are accountable, by the way. So we have also, for every big community, we have a check meter, a bulk check meter to check the total match, the consumers and this, and we know the differences and the errors and all of that. So this is like continuous. You have to work on it and also to go beyond the meter. This is because it's part of our demand side management. So the team did really a good job.
Thank you, Mr. Luta. Any other question?
Yes, please. Well, my question, it will be to Saudi and Omani. It's, and I believe that we have plenty of water. There is no scarcity of water. But there is misuse of water. What's the program which you have it? Because the question he was asking about the consumer end. What's your program you do in Saudi Arabia or Oman for making the public to rationalize on water? Because this is a very important issue. It's better than subsidizing. Because if you subsidize, people, they misuse. Thank you.
Mr. Mahrouki, please.
I think
You know that we have abundant water. Maybe this is not accurate statement. We have very limited resources. The big consumers of water in Oman is the agriculture. You know, this is where we have most of the water, especially the groundwater, you know, goes to the agriculture, which not under my control. But for the potable water, I think Oman is among the lowest within the GCC in terms of per capita. We consume around 200 liters per capita, which is not far from the international standards. Also, our coverage is still not kind of you know as what we expect or what we wish. The coverage right now it's 60%, and we are aiming to reach 95% by 2040. Our coverage of the piped water to the customers is around 60% right now. Of course, when the authority was established in 2007, we were around 160,000 customers only. Today, I have 613,000 customers. So, you know, there is a lot of efforts to spread the services within the country. The only, in my views, the only way of reducing the consumption for the customer is to apply the economic cost tariff to the customers. You know, when they realize the real value of that resources, it's not financial. What I'm talking is an economic cost. But then you have the social parts, which I mentioned, you know, earlier. That is you have to balance between the global policy within the government on how you know, the safety net for the society will be protected by introducing or increasing the tariff to reflect the economic cost.
Okay, thank you. We'll have last question, please.
Good morning. Name is Geir Bergkamp from Climate Fund Managers. We manage an investment fund in water, wastewater, and desalination in emerging economies. My question is to Your Excellency and Mr. Peru. What do you see as the role of private equity? You say there's quite a financing gap in Peru. How do you see the role of private equity to fill that gap?
Sí. ¿Cuál es el papel que consideras que tendrá la inversión privada en Perú?
Mira, es muy importante la inversión privada en Perú, producto de que esto, como he dicho, la necesidad de los 17.000 millones de dólares en infraestructura, tanto en plantas de tratamiento de agua residual como agua potable, y dentro de agua potable están las plantas de desalinización. Es muy importante porque el Perú no tiene esos fondos en estos momentos para poder hacer estas obras, para poder hacer el cierre de brechas. En ese sentido, una de las estrategias que se ha planteado el gobierno es utilizar a la inversión privada como un eje muy importante para el cierre de brechas y el mejoramiento de toda nuestra tecnología en cuanto a todo lo que son tratamientos de agua y desaguas. Entonces, es muy importante la necesidad de traer la inversión extranjera al Perú para poder hacer esa transferencia tecnológica que necesitamos para mejorar la infraestructura existente y poder dar esta tecnología y estos nuevos servicios para el mejoramiento y la sostenibilidad del servicio en el tiempo, que mejore la calidad de la vida y mejore la calidad de salud de todos los peruanos.
Okay.
say that based on the forecasted investment of about $17,000 million in water, wastewater, and development of technology is absolutely crucial, having or calling for foreign investment, private investment that would be willing to play in the local market and to ensure the role of long-term sustainability for developing the system itself. Okay. So I think that
we cannot avoid Mr. Reggie. He has to ask a question.
Please.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to a quick question mainly directed at my colleagues in the Gulf states. I pay tribute to what has been done on the desalination industry because of the activities of the Kuwaitis, the United Arab Emirates, mainly the Dubai, Sharjah, and the Omanis for that. However, I think where we have let you down, and I would like to comment on that, is really whenever we came to lost water, the unaccountable for water, we have relied a lot on the opinion of consulting engineers who happen to live under totally different circumstances. In Dubai, even 5% is really too costly. If we have to change the pipes every year, it's still cheaper than losing desalinated water. But I think in PUB it's about 3% is your, if I remember correctly, your aim at least. But I'm referring here to Saudi Arabia and to probably Oman. The leakage is still substantial. So I think the best investment today is really to do nothing, but concentrate on changing the pipelines, the pipeworks, and really look at this as the main item. It's useless to invest in better technologies than the desalination when certainly over 20% is wasted in the lines.
Thank you.
It's more of a statement, but I would like some comment.
Our Secretary General is telling us we need to end.
Okay,
maybe.
To answer? Because something about Saudi Arabia. I'd like to thank you for this question and really reduce the leakage is one of the most important, and it's part of our national strategy. However, it's not within our boundary as my firm, SWCC. Our colleague in our national water company, they have very promising programs and they are achieving good numbers. If you look at those enhancements and how they did the reduction, it's really a massive reduction. And we have a dream in our national water strategy to achieve good worldwide number, just like Singapore and other country. However, this is very important, but we should not focus on one area, leaving the other area without improvement. We are improving the whole supply chain, and all of our attention paid for this area of improvement. And hopefully, within the couple of years coming, one of our member of our national water company will present their success and their mission. Thank you.
Can I also comment on that quickly? Also in Oman, I think we achieve a great result on the NRW. In 2010, the percentage was 42%. Now we are pleased that we achieved below 20%. And we don't measure it on percentage. We measure it on volumes, the quantity itself, because sometimes the percentage misleading. And we did that by more focus. You know, it's like my colleague Nasser was saying. You know, it's a DNA within the utility. Everyone in the utility has to have that, you know, passion about it. They understand it. You know, they work against the NRW because, as you said, you know, it's too expensive to produce that water in our region, and you have to work hard in order to reduce every cubic meter you can.
Okay, so just as a 1 minute summary of the discussions, I'm probably inaccurate, but on the 3 main topics, I would say that concerning the intention and sustainability for doing more with less, there is a clear planning on that, and probably it's based on efficiency in the technologies, efficiency on fixing, and efficiencies in distribution, and research and development for achieving the newest technology. Second one is in tariffs. There seems to be also a consensus for the theoretical need for transferring the water cost, but also there is a reality on the constraint on transferring directly. But what all the speakers also confirm is that there is no, or they could not transfer inefficiencies in the systems for the end customer to be paying for it, which I fully support on that, and I always summarize that in my very famous sentence of not subsidies but solidarity. And the third one is the clear need for the huge investment that will be required in the next years for the private equity, private investment to be applied in infrastructure in the water sector. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the panelists. I think it's been very interesting. Yeah, looking forward for the next session.